We're back with former Secretary of State, Mary Herrera. We're talking to her about her term in office as a Secretary of State. When we were, I know the news always reports the negative because they have to sell a lot of papers, and we understand what's going on with the papers nowadays. So I won't get too much into that. But then let's go into a little bit more about what you accomplished as far as your term in office as Secretary of State. Because it was a pretty important position as far as you're concerned, politically speaking, and all that. Was one of your main offices that you were in.
Okay, well, immediately making all the changes to the election code, that is all the procedures and policies of how to run elections in the state of New Mexico. And because of the accomplishments, I was invited to Congress to speak in front of a committee to let them know how we implemented those changes.
What did they want to know?
They they were wanting to know how we implemented, easy access for voter registration, how we got more the Native Americans, the people with disabilities in the military, how we, accomplished those changes and made it a lot easier process.
They were focusing on the money, the financial aspects of it, or were they focused on the system itself, like what you redesigned the system? So what was their main focus?
They were wanting to know how we made those changes, plus the provisional ballots.
Okay.
When I was county clerk, there were no procedures, there were no guidelines how we were going to count those provisional ballots. And what I implemented was a statewide guideline and law that every county clerk followed and trained them how to, we were going to count the provisional ballots. So in other words, every county, we're just kind of counting qualifying provisional ballots. How do they qualify? For instance, if you went to go vote at your polling place and you were not on the roster, you were handed a provisional ballot and allowed to go ahead and vote. Well, after that, it was, well, how do we know how to qualify them? So we implemented procedure where people could come in and protest if they were also informed whether their ballot was not going to be counted or not. And they had an opportunity to come in and speak with some of the observers that that were either going to qualify it or not qualify it. So, we put New Mexico on the map.
I think so, and I think I was very surprised when you went in front of Congress and you testified there. They had, I watched that a little bit. I didn't get to watch the whole thing, but I know there were some key questions regarding finances and so how you were able to save the money and all that. Talk a little bit more about how the relationship with Secretary of State's office and the county clerk works. I know, do they work? I know there's certain offices where the county clerk handles and then some that you handle, correct?
That's correct. They actually are in charge of running their elections within their own county. The job of the Secretary of State is to make sure that they have all of the supplies and the equipment fully run and guidelines, and all of the election supplies are all printed at the state level for every single county and well trained. There's a mandated training that every county clerk and their staff have to attend, and I was strong on those trainings because I can recall going to those trainings and we were just sitting there waiting for a computer to work, and I said, no, we're not going to waste our time. We are going to really train how to train the poll officials on the opening, closing of the polls and so on. So that was very important. Like I said, elections run great now.
Correct, yeah. Where did you meet the most resistance, you would think, as far as the changes go? Because anytime you're trying to change something, there will always be certain forces that are trying to resist the change there. So where do you think the changes, the resistance was the most?
I think the biggest issue,
balloting or?
No, I think the biggest issue while I was Secretary of State was photo ID, voter fraud, that there's voter fraud happening and we need to implement photo ID. And I went in as Secretary of State running for office and I was in favor of photo ID until I got out to the pueblos and different cultures that do not believe in taking photos. So after that changed my mind. I said, wait a minute, we can't disenfranchise anyone. Everyone has the right to vote.
So, but then ultimately, I think a lot of people wanted that change as far as the photo ID, correct?
Some, and then some didn't. It was,
'Cause when
it
you
was
talk to
like
people, it's a
50,
mix,
50,
yes.
and, you know, I was not against it. However, you know, after finding out that a lot of beliefs out there, they don't like taking their photos, and they don't believe in it, so we implemented different ways of making sure that there were no voter fraud. And to this day, you know, what's been brought out, we have 1.3 million people that are registered to vote, and what did they find, 33, and then out of the 33, 11 that were, you know, questionable, or they voted, they weren't supposed to vote. But a lot of times, like one time, let me just use an example, Jose Chavez came in and he was angry because he said, somebody voted for me. Well, it turned out to be like a person that was in his 80s that signed the wrong Jose Chavez, you know, and so things like that. Once we went looking into it, there was no voter fraud. You know, it's not good to spend all this money, use it elsewhere.
I want you to comment on something on the current Secretary of State and your when there was this issue regarding postcards and individuals that are not on their addresses, and then there was a lot of everybody made a kind of a fuss about it, and we're trying to look into it and see.
Sure.
It's a way to find out if someone really lives there, or an inactive list is how she referred to it. Was that actual procedure during your administration, or
yes,
something
that was implemented. It was a card you send out to, it's every general election in the even year, 75 days before the general election. You send out a card just to verify that they're registered and there were no changes they needed to get back to their county clerks. And so, yeah, that has been.
And then they're actually living there.
If they're actually living there. And then from there, if it comes back, that gives you an indication, well, wait a minute, they may not live there. And then we look at the other process, have they not voted in how many years? And before that, we used to have, every county had a board that they would make the determination who to purge. And so...
so it's a system of purging
it's a system,
inactive
right,
voters.
Exactly.
Okay. But then it's very controversial because people say, well, no, I think you're trying to target something. I don't know what that whole, you know, screaming and yelling was about, because I was around people that said, no, I don't like that. They're sending out postcards. They're trying to disenfranchise certain individuals that are in the system. I didn't quite see it that way, but asking you, I wanted to ask you that, if that was a practice during. Was there anything else that you felt that needed to be changed that you didn't get to change in your administration?
No, I was pretty proud. I got everything, all my goals that I had set when I was going to run for Secretary of State. I had a list of items that I wanted to accomplish, and I accomplished them plus others as they came up. You know, things change, elections change. There's always something that comes up that needs to be changed, and working with county clerks and their concerns, no, I was real proud. Everything that I wanted when I was county clerk, everything I wanted to get done, I got done. And when I was Secretary of State, everything up and above. And so I was very proud.
And it's difficult in such a large office, so many moving parts there. So it's very tough to accomplish that's why I asked you if you felt like you got everything. We'll take a short break, come back, and we'll go a little bit more into what you would like to accomplish, okay?
Okay, thank you.
We'll be back with former Secretary of State, Mary Herrera. We'll be back in a couple of minutes there.